It was the day of Gandhi's assassination. But on Calvary, the sightseers were more interested in the contents of their picnic baskets than in the possible significance of the, after all, rather commonplace event they had turned out to witness. In spite of all the astronomers can say, Ptolemy was perfectly right. The centre of the universe is here, not there. Gandhi might be dead, but across the desk in his office, across the lunch table in the studio commissary, Bob Briggs was concerned to talk only about himself. "You've always been such a help," Bob assured me as he made ready, not without relish, to tell the latest instalment of his history. But at bottom, as I knew very well, and as Bob himself knew even better than I, he didn't really want to be helped. He liked being in a mess, and still more, he liked talking about his predicament. The mess and its verbal dramatization made it possible for him to see himself as all the romantic poets rolled into one. Beddoes committing suicide, Byron committing fornication, Keats dying of Fanny Brawne, Harriet dying of Shelley. And seeing himself as all the romantic poets, he could forget for a little the two prime sources of his misery, the fact that he had none of their talents, and very little of their sexual potency. "We got to the point," he said, so tragically that it occurred to me that he would have done better as an actor than as a writer of screenplays. "We got to the point, Elaine and I, where we felt like Martin Luther." "Martin Luther?" I repeated in some astonishment. "You know, ich kann nicht anders. We just couldn't do anything but go off together to Acapulco." And Gandhi, I reflected, just couldn't do anything but resist oppression non-violently and go to prison and finally get shot. "So there it was," he went on. "We got on a plane and flew to Acapulco." "Finally." "What do you mean, finally?" "Well, you'd been thinking about it for a long time, hadn't you?" Bob looked annoyed. But I remembered all the previous occasions when he had talked to me about the problem. Should he or should he not make Elaine his mistress? That was his wonderfully old-world way of putting it. Should he or should he not ask Miriam for a divorce? A divorce from the woman who, in a very real sense, was still what she had always been, his only love. But in another very real sense, Elaine was also his only love, and would be still more so if he finally decided, and that was why he couldn't decide, to make her his mistress. To be or not to be? The soliloquy had gone on for the best part of 2 years, and if Bob could have had his way, it would have gone on for 10 years longer. He liked his messes to be chronic and mainly verbal, never so acutely carnal as to put his uncertain virility to yet another humiliating test. But under the influence of his eloquence, of that baroque facade of a profile and prematurely snowy hair, Elaine had evidently grown tired of a merely chronic and platonic mess.